Hey guys, welcome back to the barn. My name's JD. Well, I've put it off long enough, but I think it's finally time for me to hang my doors. Last summer I built these using some of the wood I tore up out of my barn here, and I'm really happy with them. I think they turned out really good, but for some reason they've sat here for almost half a year now, just waiting for me to put them up. To be honest, it's kind of intimidated me a little bit, the thought of hanging them. I haven't hung too many doors, and I hope I don't screw up my doors, and I want them to work right and work smoothly and everything. But I think I'm going to jump in today and see how it goes. And got a couple handles to install too. These are my first foray into blacksmithing, first little project, and it was really fun. I loved it. I'm looking forward to doing more of it. And so let's jump into it. It's a beautiful day on the farm here today. It's going to be about 90 degrees and no wind, and just calm, and I'm loving it. This is really warm for us here. But I think the first thing I'm going to do is take apart the jamb. I got to rebuild the jamb just a little bit. After working on the doors and changing them and tweaking my design when I built them, the jamb ended up being a little too wide, so I got to change that just a tiny bit. So I'm just going to pop out the screws and go from there. So the height of the jamb is just about right. We're going to leave it alone. What we need to change is the width of the jamb. We need to narrow it up just a little bit. So I think the boards I took off are 1x12s, and I have some 2x12s, and if I put them on there, I think it's going to be just about right. So I want to double check that right now. So the doors, with both of them together, and the jamb, the metal jamb in the middle, come out to about 91 inches and a half. So I want a little bit of space for clearance and everything. I think I need to make the jamb about 92 inches. And I think by the time everything fits together, that's going to be about right. And if that's too wide, then we can always shim them up later. But I think I'll go for 92 inches for now. So the jamb now is about 96 inches wide, and like I said, the doors are at 92, so that means I could put 2 inches on either side and it should be pretty close. I think I have some actual true 2x12s, so thickness is actually 2 inches. I mean, 2x12s you buy in town are going to be 1.5 inches wide, but these are rough cut and they're 2 inches wide. I think that's what I'm going to use. It's not going to be perfect, but I think the beauty of working on a barn is it's a barn. It doesn't have to be perfect, which is definitely where my talents lie, not being perfect. But I think we'll get it to work. So let's go look at those boards and see how thick they are. Yeah, so some of them are right at 2 inches. and some of them are just under 1 7/8. But I think those are going to work pretty good. If they're not quite thick enough, I can always cut a thin piece of plywood to stick behind them to shim them out a little bit. And they're nice heavy planks. I think they're going to do well holding the weight of the doors up. There's some heavy doors, so it needs to be strong for sure. These are heavy boogers. I'm gonna rip them a couple times. I'll take off just a little bit, try to get the edge a little bit square, and then flip it over and rip the other side, and then repeat that probably one more time. The old wood where the knots are kind of bows out a little bit on the edges, and it makes it a little hard having a straight edge to cut against. So I think if I repeat that, ripping it like that a couple times, it should give me a straight edge. Okay, that was 11 inches. I think the next cut I'll make is 10 inches, and now I'll put the cut side against the fence, and then that'll be two pretty close to parallel sides, square sides. And then I'll make one more cut down to 9 inches, which is what it needs to be. It's a lot of board for this small table saw. Makes it work. My dad suggested I leave just a little bit of a gap at the bottom of the board. Here in Oregon it rains a lot, and this concrete's going to be wet through most of the winter, and he said that the board can kind of suck the moisture up and that bottom will rot pretty quickly, especially if it's untreated wood like that. I thought that was a pretty good idea, so I'm going to do that. Perfect. These are the long lag screws I'm going to use to bolt this wood to the side there, to the side frame. I I don't quite have enough of them. I thought I had more, but I have enough to get by for today, and then tomorrow I'll pick up more in town. Everything is closed today, it's Sunday. So I got some washers. I'll stick a washer on it and drill it through. I'm gonna countersink it too, so they sit down inside just a little bit. And I thought it'd be easier to drill it here than on the wall, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And I gotta make sure these bolts don't interfere with the hinges on the door, so I'm gonna make sure I know where they are before I lay things out. Drake doesn't like the birds that are up on the wire very much, do you, Drake? Got some sparrows up there on the wire. I don't really like them either. They crap all over the place. But that's the problem for not having doors. So hopefully I can fix that soon. I'm trying to decide where to put the screws. I want to put them into the beefier part of the door for sure. I think I'm going to stick one on here in this outside 2x6 at about 1 inch, and then I'll put one over here. This is really strong here, so 1 inch and 7 inch. Definitely want to make sure not to put it right in between the boards because that's not going to be very strong. So the washers are 3/4 inches wide, and I'm going to use this bit here to drill a hole for them to sit down in. It's kind of a ridiculously long bit, but it's all I have here. I forgot to grab a shorter one up at the shop when I went, but this will work. I'll get by with it. So I just want to go down deep enough for the head of the bolt to sit in the washer, so not much, maybe just 1/2 inch or so. A little unwieldy, but it's working. These kinds of bits don't work very well if there's already a hole drilled out through the board. So I drill out this first, and then I come back through and drill the hole the rest of the way through the board for the bolt to go through. And this bit actually leaves a little point in there. It keeps the second drilling, the next bit, nice and centered. 1/4 inch leg screws, so I'll drill a 1/4 inch hole. See if I can do this without putting a hole in my saw. It all sticks up underneath. Okay, this board's drilled and ready to go. I see to drill the other one. The other one I have to mirror because they're offset a little bit. Make sure I get them on the same side. So I want to drill out a hole for the lag screw. In my experience, lag screws can cause the wood to split. Jesus. So I want to drill out a hole for the lag screws in my experience, the leg screws can cause wood to split pretty easily, and it's always a good idea to have a hole that's maybe like 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch smaller than the diameter of the leg screw. But my bits for my drill aren't going to go all the way through the 2 inches of wood and then into the wall very far. So I'm just going to drill a hole as far as I can, then take the wood away and drill the hole the rest of the way. I like to drive them most of the way with the impact driver, and then finish them off, tighten them off at the end with just a ratchet, because it's really easy to strip it if you can go too far with this thing. Okay, got it all bolted. I'll show you a closer look at what the bolts look like. They sit down in there pretty nice. I just need to get more for the others. I've been measuring, and it's really close to what it needs to be. I think it's going to work. Just checking level on things. And it needs a little bit of shimming. I don't know if you can see it, but it kind of comes back this way a little bit up top. And so I'm going to back off that lag screw up top and stick some shims in behind it to bring it out to where it needs to be, and then tighten it back up. This isn't ideal because I don't have the rest of the leg screws. When I put them in, I might pull it around a little bit more. But I think it'll get by for now. I think I'll do the bottom just a little bit too. I can live with that. Okay, call that one done. Alright, I got them all shimmed up now. Nice and level. And the boards are looking pretty good. They're straight. I think they're going to work. I think the thing I need to do next is to cut a groove for the hinge to sit in. And it's kind of the part I haven't been looking forward to very much because I'm still not entirely sure how I'm going to do it. Here's the hinge plate right here that I made. Just a weld-on hinge, then a square piece of metal, and I'll drill some holes in this for screws. I'll show you how it sits on the door here. So the doors also have some weld-on hinges on them. And then this will sit like that, hinge around. So this plate needs to be recessed into the side of the jamb. And so I'll have to figure out exactly where these need to go on that board, mark it off, and then use a router to cut out where this is gonna go. So this could be kind of hard. I'm gonna think about it for a second and try to come up with a game plan. Alright, so I think I'm just gonna triple check my measurements, just hold the hinges in place here, and then try to transcribe it onto the piece of wood. I think I'm gonna hold the hinge up tight. I don't want it hanging down loose or anything. Hold it up tight, then measure from the top of the door to the top of the hinge here, and then give it a 1/4 inch more because I want a 1/4 inch of clearance on top of the door, I think. And then hopefully that'll be close enough. And then when I'm mounting the door, I think I'll do it with the hinges on there. So then when I screw the plates on, they should all line up with the door. I also need to check the depth on the hinge, figure out how far to recess it. They might not all be the same. This one's about 9/16. There, I've got one spot marked for the hinge. So once I carve that out, that hinge will sit right in there. Just got 5 more to do. So here's the spot I need to cut out for the hinge. And here's my router. Just gonna run it around. And I grabbed a piece of metal here, and I was thinking I could clamp it onto the wall at the right spacing so I could rest it on it and travel. And then I was thinking maybe I should put another piece going up so I could bump it up against it and go up. But if I'm doing that, I might as well do 3 sides and just do the whole thing. So I think I'll run up to the shop real quick, cut out a couple more pieces like this, weld them together at 90 degrees, it's square, and then I can just clamp them onto the wall at the different spots they need to be and run the router around them. I think that'll work pretty quick. It's probably worth the time to go do that to make sure they get done right. So let's run up to the shop real quick. Before I make my jig, I'm just gonna clamp this piece of metal to the board, run a line along it, and then I can figure out how far away from the metal, from the edge of the guard, it is to the outside line of the cut. Looks like right at 2 3/4. So if my hinge plate is 4 inches, I need 2 3/4 on the top and bottom. So that's 5.5. So it should be 9 inches total from the inside to the inside of my jig. If I'm doing that right, I'll double check that, but I think that's right. So I always said that I wasn't going to edit out my mistakes, and today's putting that to the test. I didn't quite get my jig right. So I did measure it right. I got 2 3/4 on either side, but my spacing here is 3.5. I needed 4. So I realized what I messed up on is I didn't account for the width of the bit. So it should be a 1/2 inch. These should be a 1/2 inch more apart. This measurement here is right because there's only one side. So I'm glad I did a test piece. That would have really sucked if that was the real thing. But I'm just going to back up to the shop and fix this thing real quick, get it done right. Alright, I got my jig fixed up. That was really tempting to edit that mistake out, but at least for me, watching other people's videos, it's always really interesting to see the mistakes, I think. There's a lot to learn, and I think it's interesting seeing the ways they fix it. I'm not trying to talk my stuff up or anything, but that's what I like to watch on other people's videos. So I'm going to throw it on there and try it out one more time. Make sure I didn't mess up twice. If I mess up twice, I might edit that out. Kind of nervous now. That's better. 4 1/16. 4 inches and 1/16. I wanted to give myself 1/16 to kind of fudge things around and get it lined up like they need to be. And 4 inches. Perfect. Real quick, I wanted to give a thanks to Marine Reason. So that's my cousin's grandma. She was married to a guy named Al, and he passed away probably 10 years ago or so, and he's a really neat guy. I knew him pretty well, and he did some woodworking, and Marine decided to give me his router and a couple other tools, and it's really cool. It's an honor, and I didn't have a router, and this is a really nice one, and so I'm going to try to put it to good use. Thanks, Marine. All right, I got the depth set, 9/16. That's what I need for the hinges. And I think I'm ready. Let's see what happens. Check the depth one more time. Looks good. that's gonna work pretty good. It's supposed to be recessed a little bit. It's not supposed to be flush here because there's a little bit of a gap between the hinge and the door. I think there's about a 1/4 inch in there. So the door should be really close to flush with the outside here. Hopefully a little bit of a gap so it's close. Cool, I like it. So now I'll just take chisel and knock the corners out. The bit leaves a little bit of a round corner. We'll take a hand chisel and a hammer and square it up. Cool, I like that. Now I just got to repeat it a bunch more. All right, I got those 3 done. Up there, notched out, and they all fit pretty good with the hinges in there. But I think I'm gonna call it a day there. We're gonna head down to the river and enjoy the rest of our Sunday evening. Probably have a little barbecue and swim around a little bit. But I'll pick up where I left off here tonight, tomorrow after work. My sister wanted to have a little party here next weekend, so I'm hoping to get the doors up by then.
Let's get extreme!